generally trying to take care of their physical and mental well-being. And so, having access to a public pool serves many different purposes for people, depending on whether they're engaging in community sport or they're just there for recreation, or they're there to, to do some personal training or for their own fitness. It's one of those things as well that can be used by people of all ages and people with disabilities as well, because once you're in the water and it takes all of the weight off your body, there's a whole lot of people who can participate in fitness activities in the water that would find it difficult otherwise. So having access to public pools is important.
There's
for a
lady here who's stroking her black cat.
The difficulty with the Phillip Pool being on privately owned land and, clearly reaching end of life, now is probably a really good time for us to be having the conversation in the community to try and get a better understanding of what it is that we collectively want out of access to swimming pools, so that whatever opportunities come up for maintenance or renewal or access to other facilities, that we're looking for something that, so that whatever. Oh, I can hear some echo. So that was me. Something that meets all of those diverse needs, and it's entirely possible that the current outdoor Phillip swimming pool is not meeting all of those needs. So now is actually a really good time to be having the conversation about what those needs are. And I guess it also really highlights the importance of having a long-term facilities plan, so that we're talking about not just swimming pools, but other sports and recreation facilities that might be needed in Woden, but also about what's happening with swimming pools in other parts of Canberra and how the swimming pool in Woden fits into that longer term plan for the whole of ACT. So you would have heard earlier in the year about Jonathan Davis's motion to get a long-term facilities plan for sports and recreation in the ACT. And this is the kind of thing that probably should be considered as part of that, because it is a facility that once it's built, it's around for a very long time. But then once it's reaching its end of life, you have to plan for what's going to happen next. I can see that Caroline's got her hand up. So I think that's probably mostly what I wanted to say about the Phillip swimming pool. And I'm really interested to hear all of your views.
Thank you. I guess my question is, we've known for a very long time that the swimming pool had problems. I was looking today and there is a reference in the Canberra Times 2012, but I think it's earlier than that. And Jonathan's motion is great, but what is the government actually going to do anything to get a swimming pool back for Woden? Because we've known about this for over 10 years. The government right now is spending its time. It's built Stromlo Forest Park. It's going to build or support ice skating in Tuggeranong. One of the major reasons there isn't a pool is government action. Is the government, given we don't have a pool anymore, is the government planning to do anything fairly quickly?
Yeah, look, I think the decision makers on getting maintenance for the existing Phillip swimming pool, and then thinking about who the decision makers are within government on any replacement facility or new facilities. I think there are conversations that Woden Community Council needs to be having with a number of people in ACT government. So that would include Minister Steele for the existing facility and what can be done there. But also, I think having conversations with Minister Berry and with Minister Gentleman, because if there were to be any new sports facilities in the Woden area, both of those two ministers would need to be involved in that conversation. So, there are things that I can do to advocate for and support community views as a local MLA who happens to also be in Cabinet, but it's really important that you're talking to the ministers who actually do have the decision-making authority there, as well as all the other MLAs for Murrumbidgee, to make sure that what it is the community is looking for out of either temporary solutions to get us through the next few years or for longer term solutions are really well understood by the people who have the ability to make those decisions.
That is fair enough, Emma, and we will try to talk to the people that make the decisions. You know, we have tried very hard for decades.
Yeah.
You know,
I
a community centre, they're still behind the chemist warehouse. Like, we have asked for decades. And
Yeah.
I wrote to the Chief Minister, the Deputy Chief Minister, Yvette Berry. I wrote to Mr. Rattenberry, Mr. Gentleman, Minister Steele. Rissa's come and you've come. No, but Yvette wrote back, emailed me back and said she couldn't come. She had another thing on and that no officials could come. And, you know, so it's not for a lack of trying, but what we are going to do is a district level plan and see if we can put that forward, a plan, and we'll consult with the community on that. That's just another way of trying.
And I think that is a really good constructive way of approaching it, because then you're coming in to say, you know, here's a sort of a summary of what it is the community is looking for and how it fits into the bigger picture. And I think that's a really good constructive way of doing it, because then when you've got that plan and you know, and you've got on there what it is that the community are looking for out of you know, things like a public pool or other sporting facilities, and I think everyone knows what I think on that stuff. I think when you're doing that, it means that all of your Murrumbidgee MLAs have something really clear and concrete that we can advocate for on your behalf. And it also means that the relevant ministers involved have something really clear about what it is you're looking for, as opposed to, you know, just pointing out the problems that we all know have existed for a really long time. So to be able to come forward and say, actually, here are some ideas for solutions, let's talk about those, I think is a really good way to drive that conversation forward.
Nick Howard, would you like to say something?
Hi everyone, thanks for that. Just a couple of things. Does anyone have any idea where a replacement pool could go? Just something to think about and maybe write it in chat. I think it's really important to have a pool in Woden. Like I've written, it seems pretty clear that the government seem to think that Stromlo pool is okay for Woden, but as a member there, to be honest, it's not the kind of thing that you just jump in the car or walk to and go for a swim. It's not the same as having a local pool. I think it's something that thousands of people use. It's like a little air conditioner, and I think it would be a pity it's a pity that land has been privatised. And without wanting to conflate a different issue, but I think it's related. It seems okay for the government to privatise publicly owned land that's just on a concession or lease in a golf club for around only 1,000 people playing golf, one of the most expensive sports, you know, in the world. And now we've lost an outdoor swimming pool. And to perhaps just put that into perspective. That's all I'll say on that. But, you know, really. But where could it go? And how much do these things cost? What would have to happen to build a new pool?
I'm not sure.
I have no idea, but I know it's not cheap. But
yeah. The Stromlo one cost about 36 million, but I dare say there was an awful lot of earthworks to, you know, build that on the side of the mountain. We have got a couple of sites in mind, but it depends on what we're trying to achieve. So, you know, we can build up the hospital campus and have something north of the athletics track that opens up onto Edison Park and try and activate Edison Park and draw people across from the town centre across Edison Park and have a cafe and build that up. Another option would be to build up the corridor between Mawson, Southlands, and the Plaza and High Marsh Drive. That's already got 2 schools in Phillip, and try and bring more activity to that Phillip, the service area. So we could put one in there, in an art centre. You could do great stuff through that corridor, bring back Yarralumla Creek. It could be so fantastic, and we will put all those sort of things into a plan, those sort of options about, it's what you're trying to achieve for the areas of the precinct and how they connect. So we will do it in the context of schools, different sporting facilities, retail, your paths to get there. See, there are so many benefits to all this. It's your physical health, your mental health. It's connecting with other people. It's kids having fun. And it's got to be local. We can get in our car and drive to the Belconnen basketball stadium or the Stromlo pool. But it's it's a term that used to be used. It's not seemingly used so much anymore. It's the social capital of what you build up in your local community. And, it's kids being independent when they become teenagers, and they can just ride their bikes or catch public transport to the local hub. They're not having to rely on their parents. I have to drive my kids all over the place because there's not a lot left to do in Woden. When I was growing up in Woden, we had heaps of things. So I think it has been diminished, and I think it's very sad, and I think that we have to fight for it to come back, because basically what has happened is that Canberra was designed on a decentralised model of the town centres, and you were supposed to be able to they were supposed to be relatively self-contained, and you were allowed out, but you could do most of your social activities in your town, in your district. And if you were lucky enough to work there, that was great. Otherwise, you were in different town centres or the city or Barton, and it was all sort of distributed. Anyway, things have sort of changed, and we've moved into a bit of a hub and spoke model. It's all more around the city and us all feeding into the city. And so the agglomeration in the city has drawn, we're in what's called an agglomeration shadow. It's being drawn out of us into the city. So we've lost jobs, we've lost vets affairs, CASA. Anyway, in acknowledging what the economic reality is, that's where governments intervene to provide the facilities so that you can try and stay local and build up your community. So in saying that, I did notice that Bob Alford joined the meeting. I don't know if you're ready yet, Bob. I know you've only just joined, but Bob is from Swimming ACT, and it would be nice to hear a few words from the swimming community about the importance of this facility to them. And I have also noticed that I think you might not want me to say this. David Jeffrey, did I see you? From
Fiona,
Sports and Rec.
Fiona, can I say we've got Jacinta Eston with us as well, who's in a national swimming squad, and she's loved this pool. So really appreciate her giving up her time. She's currently training in Sydney. But just to acknowledge Jacinta being with us. Thanks.
Jacinta, put your hand up. There she is. So if Bob's around, are you there, Bob, or not? Or we'll see if Jacinta can kick off. Bob's there. There you go.
Yep. How are you going?
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Look, I guess broadly for Swimming ACT, the main issues that we've had and endured for a very long period of time is good quality availability of lane space for our competitive swimming for all our clubs across all of Canberra. And at the moment, when you look at the Woden area, and Woden Swim Club operated out of Lakeside Leisure Centre alongside with Tuggeranong Vikings for many, many years. And that's in part because they didn't have a pool in the Woden area to facilitate, squad training and good competition training and that lane availability. That said, like fantastic facility built out at Stromlo, but in terms of the Woden Valley community and that central part of the southern end of Canberra, it is devoid of an actual decent facility for the community to actually participate at recreational swimming, as well as learn to swim and, of course, competitive swimming. So from our point of view, another facility would be absolutely ideal in the Woden area and would complement probably broadly what we've got so far, although we would like to see obviously more pools. But it's, you know, and it will create, and it creates a really good community hub for people to go and participate in other sports such as water polo, even the unusual sport of underwater rugby, synchronised swimming, and heaven forbid one day, hopefully Canberra can actually have a diving pool for our cohort of people out there that enjoy the sport of diving. But yeah, so it's been an ongoing issue for us, and we would absolutely like to be part of any lobbying with the government to try and improve the pool's availability in ACT. And I think Woden is one of the areas that really needs to be looked at, particularly now that we're losing the facility at Phillip.
Thank you, Bob. That is really great to get a perspective from Swimming ACT. I've also spoken to the presidents of the Tilapia Swimming Club and the Burley Griffin Swimming Club. I'm not sure if Les Barkley or Stacey have signed on, but they also make that case that, you know, they've been training out of Grammar, 25-metre pool at Grammar, and that had closed with COVID. So they're, you know, looking for places to train. As we know, it's the same with the indoor sports. They were training, the Dodgers were training at the skate park the other day because they had nowhere else to go. It's just outrageous.
I think a big loss for us, Fiona, has been the closure of the 50-metre indoor pool at Deakin. And that has never really been replaced in that part of Canberra. So that's probably been one of the biggest sore spots and big loss for the sport generally.
So we're losing out of this area 2 50-metre pools. We already lost Oasis. That was a 50-metre pool. And now if we lose Phillip, we're losing 2 50-metre pools. Jacinta, would you like to? Thank you. Jacinta is our champion swimmer. Was that our, you know, like our champion swimmer?
Yeah, I guess I'm happy to talk about the perspective of like a competitive swimmer. Like half of our major competitions are in outdoor pools, and I don't know, you probably wouldn't realize initially, but swimming in an outdoor pool is very different from swimming in an indoor pool because you have to learn to swim with the weather and doing backstroke with the sun straight in your eyes. And I know initially when I started swimming, I always trained in indoor pools, and then I'd go to race outdoors and I'd just like zigzag across the lane because I couldn't swim outdoors. And then I did some training at Phillip Pool because it was an outdoor pool that was near my home, and I didn't want to drive like north side just to get in some extra training. And it really helped like with my competitive swimming because I can swim outdoors now. And
have you got Danielle's number?
Everybody go on mute.
Tell her you're inside. I'll be 5 minutes.
If you don't go on mute, I'll mute you all. And then last time I couldn't get you off mute.
Yeah,
sorry about that, Jacinta.
That's all right. But yeah, if this pool closes, then it's hard to get that kind of experience in that you need if you want to perform well, and you'd have to drive to the other side of Canberra for it. And not to mention, even like not competitively swimming, like me and my friends will just go down to that pool and just relax on the side of the pool and play about, because it's just a really nice facility where you can just relax and be out in the sun. And it would be really sad if that's taken away.
Thanks, Jacinta. Good luck with your training. It is the only outdoor pool in Canberra South, the only 50-metre, because Monica is actually a 30-metre. So
yeah, 30 is just a weird distance to train at.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't suppose actually that, I mean, I understand, I've learned a lot about swimming over the last few weeks. There's the 20-metre short course and the 50-metre long course, and swimmers need to train both of those. So yeah, I hadn't thought about that. If you train in a 30-metre pool, it probably mucks your turns and your timing and stuff up.
It throws it all out, and it's really difficult to train like that. So,
so that means Monica's more of a fun pool, as opposed to a training pool.
Definitely. This would be the outdoor training pool on the south side.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I've learned another thing. Julia has just arrived, and Julia, thank you for being really supportive about the whole pool issue. We all stood outside Phillip Pool the other day with signs, and Julia's put a petition on her website. We put one, it's the same petition, but we put it on the e-petition site. So there's 2 places to go to sign the petition. Would you like to say a few words about it, Julia?
Yes, look, thanks for having me in for a short period. I'm in another meeting tonight as well, so I've just stepped out for a minute. I just really value that swimming pool at Phillip. I really value that it's part of the Australian way of life to be able to have an outdoor swimming option. I don't believe that the swimming pool over in Molonglo Valley is in any way a replacement, and I'm going to fight to keep it open. I really hope that the petition pushes the government to potentially invest just a little to get the thing sorted out before the end of this summer. I'd really like to see it open before the end of this summer. I fear if we live without it for a whole summer that it'll be harder to get it open next year. So, and I'm asking the government to ensure that there's an open air swimming pool always for Woden in that central area somewhere. So I'd love it to be that one, but equally I would accept it if it was a new one. But we just don't want to have a period of time without one. And we really do need to keep that swimming pool open, and either that one or another one be the long-term solution. I don't mind what the answer is, so long as there is a long-term outdoor swimming option that's really convenient for everybody. As we put more and more people in the Woden Town Centre, I know a lot of people around me know my concern is, what are they going to do? And Fiona's made a great case over the last few years for all of the facilities that have been lost, and I'm doing what I can to try and make sure that we don't lose any more and that we get additional investment into the Woden Town Centre for the whole south side. Frankly, it's a really important area for the whole south side. So thanks for your support, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm sorry that I'll only be here for a short time tonight. Good to see Caroline and Marisa and Emma as well. We're all trying to do our bit.
Has anybody got any questions for Julia before she has to go? I think I just wanted to emphasise that point you made, Julia, about the swimming pool not being for just Woden residents. It is for everybody. I often feel like we're divided from Western Creek because we're a district and they're a district and they have their own community council and we do. And, you know, they have Coolum Court, which is a great thing. But Woden Town Centre is actually Western Creek's town centre too. And we are one, Woden Western Creek. A lot of our sporting teams will be Western Creek Woden Dodgers. And I think we have to make sure that we're not divided because what happened was there was a sports report and it looked at indoor sports facilities. It found that Woden had a small population and that we were ageing and that the growth areas were more important for facilities, and so therefore we could use our schools. And I said, hang on a sec, it's not just Woden and it's not the same thing. The Woden Town Centre, everybody from the south hubs into it. It's on the main alignment through to the city in the north where all the employment is. So when people are coming home, it's a convenient spot to stop and have a swim or play sport when you're you know, like when you're transiting home because it's on the way. So
look, it's a safe place for teenagers. It's a place where those who can't swim indoors can swim. It's a very specific facility, and I know, I mean, I've driven over there from Western Creek many times with the kids, and it's just because it's an old-fashioned facility doesn't mean it isn't really loved. And I think the more people we can get to sign the petition, the more we can demonstrate how much that swimming pool is wanted and required and needed. So please do pass the link around, whether it's the Assembly one or my one on my social media accounts. It doesn't matter. The main thing is that we get signatures and we'll get an official response from the government. I just wanted to also mention welcome as well to Peter Kane from our team from the Canberra Liberals, who's our shadow for planning. So he's here to listen to all the planning issues. So thanks for being here too, Peter. Yep.
Thank you. Peter, would you like to say a few words?
I think Louise had a hand up.
Oh, sorry, Louise.
Happy to wait a turn, Fiona, but in your hand.
Yep, sorry, Louise, you go.
It's actually Andre.
Yeah, just very quickly on that situation, let's get lots of people noticed to sign petitions. I cycle around a little bit, and at the traffic light diagonally across from it, I was there with my neighbour and people we just passed. I turned around to him and said, do you know the pool is unlikely to open this year? And whoever I've mentioned it to, they say, what? There is a big surprise for people who don't know, who don't have a clue. Yeah. And I think with some kind of a question mark and pool and plastering or whatever, making it a mystery that people look it up and getting, what the heck? Even WTF? We should get a lot more people to kick in. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put signs up all over the place, Andre. Oh.
Yeah, I agree. Not many people know. Fiona, maybe we could even do a half a dozen or a dozen call flutes on the issue. I might be able to get them printed just plain, just to say, you know, the pool's currently closed. The other thing I just wanted to say is I've put my phone number up in the chat. Feel free to save it. And if you can make some suggestions to me about where I could go to get signatures on the paper petition, because I also have the paper version, just suggest to me and I'll go there so we can get more. I thought maybe if I went to Lions Shops on a weekend or something, but if you know your area better, if there's somewhere you'd like me to go and collect up some more signatures, please let me know.
Definitely.
Mary, I think Mary
Can
had a question.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, I haven't got a hand to put up, so I'm sorry, I have to just talk in. Are we saying that the Phillip pool has been privatised, or we're signing petitions to save the Phillip pool?
Phillip
to have it opened.
To have it reopened. So it has technically been privatised a few years ago. What was the year, Fiona? We worked
2008.
that out.
Oh, well, it actually started in 1979 on 10-year leases. And when the lessee built the ice skating rink, that was a major investment by the private sector in it, even though it was on 10-year leases. So those continued until 2008, and then it was leased for 99 years, which is effectively selling it.
So we're signing the petition for the Phillip pool.
Yes.
For the Phillip pool to reopen.
What we're asking the government to do is to give a one-off support payment for the income that was lost during COVID to the ice skating rink, because the swimming pool's maintenance is subsidised by the ice skating rink. And given that the government's promised a new ice skating rink, it does put question marks above the future of the whole facility, because that's the income stream that keeps it going. So there's quite a lot of work to be done. However, I think at this stage, the most important thing is to push to get it open this summer. Then there's probably another bit of work to do about the long-term future.
Yeah. Nice ring, Julia. You've got a nice new ring there.
My husband bought me a ring. I haven't upgraded since I got married, and my eldest is nearly 16. Thank you.
Good one, Julia. Nice.
I had 6 babies. I think I deserve an upgrade.
I think you deserve it too, Julia. Mary, your hand's been up for a while. Do you want to?
Thanks, Fiona. And Julia, thanks for what you've done so far, and really appreciating to Marissa and Peter and obviously Emma for being here. Emma, you raised the issue of speaking to other politicians, or members, I should say, the government. Sorry, can people mute themselves, please? So, yeah, Emma, I've certainly reached out to those that you've mentioned, and I did it earlier this year because Could everybody please mute, please? So, for example, the response from Minister Berry was there's now the Stromlo facility.
No.
So I think that might be the response. So we have to really look at this differently. And for those of you who are present now to really think about what we're saying in terms of all the arguments that Fiona's already covered in terms of why it's so critical for our community's well-being and that we really are Western Creek Woden, as you said.
And I think it's the only outdoor swimming pool, isn't it? It's the only outdoor one on the south side. So it's a really important facility. It's like when we were having the fight about the hydrotherapy pool. It wasn't good enough to say people can go to the north side where there aren't any appointments. The south side needs its facilities too.
It does. And with the buses there, Julia, and light rail at the piers, it's just so accessible. So
and stacks and stacks of kids in towers. There's going to be kids growing up in towers.
Yep. And the tricky issue with the lease arrangement, of course, is that the current owner effectively has it now for a very long period of time. But we know from all our individual discussions and what he's also had printed and said on radio that he does want to be able to basically get away from it because they're tired and they're disappointed by what's happened with the ice skating. So that's why, we've been pushing, Emma, I suppose, particularly and Marissa, that the government looks at whether it can be acquired and maybe with some private investors. We had some ideas as to, what could go in the ice skating site, for example, to make it accessible and attractive to the developer.
I'll see if I can find who's not muted and mute them.
It's Noel, I think it's Noel.
Oh, I muted you. Where'd Noel go? So,
I
Mary,
think Darren's got his hand up.
Yeah, I just make one comment on what Mary said about they're tired. John Rout's been doing it for 40 years, maintaining that pool and the ice rink. The thing is, it is zoned as an ice rink and a pool. So assumably, if they no longer want that site, because that's what they bought it as, then they sell it. The problem now is, though, who wants to buy it? Because with the new ice rink in Tuggeranong, the financial viability of the site has been undermined. It's been diminished. People will go to the new ice rink in Tuggeranong. It's going to be a fantastic double sheet, new thing. So John Rout tells us that while there were people interested in buying the site, they've dropped away. They're no longer showing interest because the financial model viability is no longer there. So this is I don't know, am I dreaming? This is the ACT government undermining a private sector community facility. So that this is where the long-term solution needs to come into it. And we would really love to keep the ice rink in Woden. It is such a fantastic social and economic driver for the area. Anyway, so I'll leave it at that. Darren, it's your turn to make a comment.
Hello, how are you? I'm moving back into Woden after knocking down my in-laws' property where my partner first came to Woden, and I'm moving there with a 9-year-old and 7-year-old kid. Now, I don't know where the government is getting their census data for the ageing population. A lot of those homes around in Chifley, where I'm buying, are getting bought by younger people with kids. And if you go down that Chifley shops, there's hundreds of them. And then you're going to have towers. And the other question is, has anyone worked out if the Stromlo pool could cope with so many people over summer, young kids from the 2 districts? Like, I don't get that.
Certainly it's pretty busy now. Yeah.
COVID's not disappearing for a long time. There could be another pandemic. And even all those tower blocks are going to have young kids and they want to learn to swim. And I don't know, it just stuns me. Like, it's the most sought after area in Canberra now.
Yeah.
And there's heaps of kids. Like,
maybe that's why it's maybe that's why because it is such a sort of after site, so central, so accessible by public transport from around all of Canberra, that its value, the land is of high value and highest and best use in the eyes of the government is the towers. That's where they're getting the revenue. It's not
Yeah,
community facilities, I'm afraid. Peter Kane.
I'll just add
Yeah.
one more thing.
Sorry,
if I
Darren.
can.
Sorry, yeah.
Can I just add one more thing? The
Yep.
values of the other higher towers will not be there if there isn't facilities for people to go to and spend time at. That means the other towers will just all go down and we'll just get a whole lot of slums and the kids will just run riot. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you,
sorry,
Darren.
Fiona, I'm going to have to dash,
Yeah.
but I thank you very much for having me, and please feel free for people to get in touch with me through my phone or my email.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you for your support. Peter Kane.
Oh, yeah, Fiona, no, you're spot on, Fiona. All of these prime locations, the government's priority is residential, medium and high density. And, you know, the conversation you guys have been having about the pool reminds me of so many I've been at, and I've been going to lots of community councils in the last 12 months. And again, it's indicative of the government lacking in genuine consultation with the community that measures effect. So consultation is a tick box exercise if it's done at all, and the actual desires of the community rank pretty low in what the government outcome is.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, the master plan, which they like to draw on when it suits them, the master plan, that northern area was our recreation precinct. So in the master plan, it was a recreation and living precinct. When it transferred to the law, it became 16-story towers. And there was, so if you're going to have recreation and living in the same precinct, you sort of got a plan for how that is going to work, because when you zone the whole thing for towers, the recreation just loses out. So
And just a couple of final quick ones. I won't take up too much time for my own purpose, but I've dropped my email in, obviously, for people to reach out if you think I can help you with anything. But the petition is a great idea, so well done, Fiona, and Julia's on board, of course. Look, the other thing that sways government decisions is lots of names on letters, lots of names on petitions, of course. And particularly, we've got several local members here, of course, Marissa and Emma. Local members are affected by lots of their constituents speaking at once on the one thing. So I just want to encourage you that there are avenues to explore.
thank you. Marissa, you've had your hand up for a little bit.
Can I just respond to what Peter just said? I've got 3 petitions with thousands and thousands of signatures to stop the kangaroo killing, and all they ever do is come back with, they ignore the petitions and they come back with more and more killing until there's none left. So Peter, what do you suggest there?
Oh, Nora, let's take that as a comment. Let's not divert onto kangaroo culling at the moment. Let's just stay focused on the pool. Thanks, Nora. You can talk to Peter offline about that one. Marissa.
Yes, hi everyone. Love this discussion. I'm also very passionate about the pool. I'm about to lose my computer charge in a minute, but really, yeah, encourage you on the petition and sign the petition. I guess what I would say is that I think this is a very similar issue to the shops, is that I guess government will be looking for, in terms of value for money in its investments and value for taxpayers. And I think investing in a private pool is potentially not the best value for taxpayers' money when the pool is in desperate need of serious works. And I think there's, questions of these owners of these facilities and shops in our local areas that hold the community hostage on these things. So I think there's a real issue around that. And I think one thing that I would perhaps also suggest as an option is corporate sponsorship. So one of the problems with Woden is that all those towers, they all have pools as well. They're not lap pools for sure, but if, you know, I think that's, you know, one of the, where a lot of these children will go rather than the community facility. But I do think it might be worthwhile talking to local businesses or business groups around investment. I don't know how much is needed in this pool to get it operational, but I think the owner should also be held to account. And I think that you know, we should be looking broader than just government for investment in these facilities, particularly one that's privately owned. The final thing that I'd say is that the zoning for this site is for a sports and rec facility. So even if, you know, someone built apartments, they would still have to engage with this sports and rec zoning issue. So I think there's a lot to go on there. And, you know, I think we can't just say because the government is going to build an ice skating rink for the community, which will be a community facility, not privately owned, that, you know, it's because they're doing that the ice, you know, this facility is suffering. I think that this is privately owned and there should be some account for how they've invested in this facility over the last 40, 50 years. So yes, but I am very, very, very keen to see a pool in Woden. And yeah, there's lots of comments on the side about the opening hours. You know, the pool does shut at 6 and it's only open in the summer months. So, you know, I think there is a conversation to be had around, you know, where the investment goes in a pool in Woden and whether an indoor pool and maybe perhaps a larger sporting facility would be a better investment. So yeah, but really great to have this conversation tonight. And yeah, I'm very supportive of a pool in Woden.
Thank you,
just
Marissa.
real quick, Fiona, if I may. Just real quick, is that okay?
Yeah.
And just touching on what Marissa said about the zoning, look, for the last 4 or 5 years in the ACT government, I managed tax disputes in the tribunal involving lease variation charges. So I know what developers are able to do with community parcels, etc. And obviously they do it for residential development. So the zoning thing is really just something that's easily overcome by an approved variation in the lease and processing of the lease variation tax. And that's happening all the time in Canberra. And like I said, I dealt with some of the biggest tax disputes in the ACT involving this very issue, and developers are still doing very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Priyanka?
Hi, Fiona, thanks. And thanks for that, Marissa. I guess I just wanted to say in response to that, you know, public facilities like public pools, there's a reason why they tend to be publicly owned. It's very hard to turn a profit for these sorts of operations, and particularly in Canberra with our climate. So I think there's always a case that these sorts of facilities should be in public hands. And I mean, we weren't there 50 years ago when this was privatized or whenever it was. And I would argue it probably never should have been. These sorts of community amenities should be publicly owned because the economics just don't work privately. And we're seeing that now. So I guess I'm not sure that it is an answer to say, well, let's get some commercial support for it, because it's not commercial, and these are services that government should provide. There's a huge number of people living in Woden, and I don't think it's sensible to say, well, the people in the towers will swim in the pools, because there's also a lot of urban infilling, and there's a lot of young families moving into duplexes and other units. The whole demographics of this area are changing. So I respect those views, and I believe in value for money. I think all government procurement should be on that basis. But here you've got a private developer who's being incentivized not to open a pool. And I think that's where government steps in and says, actually, this is a community service we should be providing. Over.
Thank you, Pri. I agree. There's been times when I know one developer in a different context wanted to upgrade the urban realm in what's called north of the town square, and they weren't able to work in partnership with the government on it. So then when the government said, could all the local businesses and building owners around help us with upgrading the town square, when they did the Woden experiment, they all went, no, like, you haven't helped us, we're not helping you. Like, so there's got to be a mutual goodwill in how developers in the commercial sector and the government all work together to improve things. But it's still very difficult in this circumstance, because I do think that it is true that the financial viability of the Phillips Centre is diminished due to the ice rink going into Tuggeranong, because that's where the people will go. So if they're not getting the customers at the older ice rink, it's if they're struggling now, it's going to be even worse. So I think there needs to be a whole look at the financial model that is underpinning this. So Marissa, your hand's up. Did you want to say something else, or Louise? You go then.
Yes, just from me, please, Fiona. Andre again. I know probably living in utopia, but could we pit the Leonard Club and the Southern Cross Club against each other to put money in with their systems and their money? I know they've done the dirty on the courts and everything else in that point. A Leonard Club, if people kids picked up from the pool and then go and have dinner afterwards, there must be benefits for them to keep it together. They can't all fit in that swimming pool that the Southern Cross might have there now anyway.
That's 17
they
meters.
need to keep it. They need to keep it alive. And if we can almost shame them into saying, "Hey, listen, assist with your town that you benefiting from, and you getting your money out of." I know they say they do lots of community support, but I think they could go there.
Hellenic Club supports Woden Valley Soccer.
That's right, etc. But maybe we can pit them against each other. Sorry, living in utopia.
No, I mean, they are big clubs. The Hellenic Club and the Southern Cross Club are massive clubs. So, it's worth a conversation with everyone. Tony Prescott, I saw you entered the room, and it's a bit on the spot. Tony's from the ice sports community, and I have spoken to Tony over the years, and I am really disappointed that the ice isn't staying in Woden, because it is such a great facility. There are so many different ice sports, and I just think if you're going to have one facility for the whole of Canberra, and not only for the whole of Canberra, for the regions around too, because tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the only ice facility between Sydney and Melbourne. Or is there another one?
Happy to make a few comments, Fiona, and thanks for the invite. I guess a few things there. I mean, yes, it is the only facility between Liverpool and Melbourne. There's an old rink at Ballarat. I think it's closed down now, but let's leave that one to the side. We've always said, the ice rink in Woden isn't a facility just for Woden. It's a facility for all of the ACT. And it's been, frankly, a facility for southern New South Wales. We have people come as part of the ice sports community from as far as the South Coast, Cooma, Albury, etc. So we've learned through years of experience that because it's a one-off facility, it's a very unique facility, people will come. Now, by putting it in Tuggeranong, if you're coming from Gungahlin, it's an extra 6 minutes drive. And it's a facility, as I said, that people will go to for that unique experience. Now, we genuinely are empathetic, I guess, to the swimming community and the Woden community. For us, the risk is we've got a 41-year-old facility. I have to challenge you there when you say it's a great facility. I mean, I have a deep affection for the facility, of course, being part of the ice sports community, but it's tired, it's old, it needs a major revamp. And I say, we've genuinely cherished having that facility for a very long time. So this is not an attack on the ownership. We genuinely have appreciated their support to have had access for so long. But The ice sports community is at a point where we cannot grow in the current facility. We need a new facility that meets the standards of to host major events. Now, the current Phillip Ice Rink, it's not full size. It's the minimum standard by recollection of an Olympic facility, and it's one sheet of ice. Now, for us, we are struggling to get the time that we need for all of the sports, and basically it's at full capacity. It's at saturation point. So the new facility that we are building, and when I say we, it's certainly not me, the new facility that will be built will have 2 sheets of ice. So it not only allows our sports to finally start to grow again, it's an opportunity for us to make our sports more financially viable, and really bring more kids into ice sports from right around the ACT. We are bringing in private investment through a public-private partnership with the government, and the opportunities for ice sports are going to grow exponentially by having that new facility. Now, I saw a question there before. Yes, Tuggeranong was announced last September as the site. I probably don't want to comment any more in that, because it's certainly, I haven't decided where that site's going to be. That's a discussion for the government and the investors. And we've always said, the location will be determined by the people who stump up the fund. What we've said to the government, and we've had a consistent position now for, indeed, the campaign for a new ice sports has been going for 7 years, and this is our 5th ice sports centre campaign in the last 30 odd years. Our position, we put a set of principles to the government in what we thought would help make a viable location. The things like, access to public transport, near a major shopping facility, flat block of land to keep the costs down, public parking, those kind of things. We've stayed true to that, and we believe the new location meets that need. And I think equally, in some of the comments you made there, John's been saying for quite some time that, the rink subsidises the pool. He's on record for saying that, undeniably. But for every dollar that comes out of the ice rink that gets spent on the pool, that's a dollar from our perspective that should have been spent on the ice sports. So in some regards, it's you've got to factor that in too, that the pool has been determined as financially unviable. It requires a major capital injection. Now, we genuinely wish you well, like we would any sporting organisation or community organisation, for a new community sports facility, because we've been fighting that battle now for 5th time around, and this one's been going for 7 years. So we genuinely understand your concerns, but from our perspective, if the ice rink closes down for us, and it is 41 years old, we're driving to Liverpool in Sydney, not down to Stromlo. So I would ask you to be aware of that. The other thing is, we've had, we are aware anecdotally, and people who've reached out to us, that they don't like to come to the Phillip Rink. Now, we've always taken a really positive position around Phillip Rink, and we will continue, but we know that the growth of our sports and bringing more kids in, more spectators in, more people in, is very much linked to getting a new facility. And we're in such an awesome position right now. The way this facility will work, and we have regular engagement with the proponent, we're looking at building a facility that's going to be a serious facility. We will be in a position to bring in national championships. We can't do that in the Phillip Rink in some of the sports because it's not big enough. We'll be in a position to bring in potentially world ice hockey championships in the lower grades, but certainly we can bring events like that in. We can't do that at Phillip now because we need 6 change rooms to host an event of that magnitude. Phillip doesn't have that. So it's a dilemma. We hear you and genuinely wish you well, but from our perspective, we would encourage you not to campaign for your pool at the expense of what has been a very drawn out campaign for us, going for 7 years to get a new ice sports centre. Be aware that there is a consequence if you link the two.
Tony, could we unlink the two? Could we build another pool in Woden? There are sites, and have the ice centre have the whole of the Phillip site, and you could put another, you rink in there.
Fiona, the decision was announced in September last year to go to Tuggeranong, you know, so I mean, I don't own the land. I'm not the advocate for the land. I'm the advocate to get a new facility. So that's, in my view, that's been announced and determined, and that ship's kind of sailed. So, you know, and we know again, and this is our point, you know, that people will travel, whether they're from Woden or Gungahlin or wherever, to a new ice sports centre. You know, we're going to have a brand new facility. It will be the premier ice sports centre, frankly, in Australia, and quite likely the Southern Hemisphere, right here in Canberra. Everyone benefits, particularly the primary user, which is the ice sports community. And as I said, you know, we've been representing the ice sports community for 7 years to get this facility. So, you know, for us, it's about seeing this through now, and getting the new facility built. And as I said, we genuinely wish you well. But the Phillip ice rink doesn't meet our needs. And of course, the other thing is we've got to do it in a way that hopefully keeps the current rink open before we cut the ribbon on the new one, because what we don't want to lose is our sports in the interim as well. So it's there might not be a perfect solution here, but you know, but
it's a terrible solution, Tony.
Well,
it's terrible for the heart of Canberra South.
Well, it depends what you mean by that solution. If you're talking about the Woden pool, you know, I'm not going to comment on that. That's not my space. But certainly for the ice rink and getting a new ice sports centre built in Canberra before the current one closes, it's a really good outcome from the ice sports community's perspective with the new rink. And as I said, we genuinely wish you well with the pool, but that's not our issue.
Well, this is where we need government leadership, frankly, to find a solution that minimises the losers, is the least worst solution for a whole range of things that need to be considered. And access to these facilities is a big concern too. So anyway, I know you say, Tony, that the ship has sailed, but I've seen plenty of infrastructure facilities announced and not delivered. And until the thing is built, there's always room for governments to re-announce.
So Tony, is that going on Athlon Drive, the new ring?
Ish, yeah, ish.
It is near the.
So the location is just behind the Vikings club there.
Roland Rees Crescent.
So that's why that's all been fenced off. It's been fenced
no,
off.
I think the fencing off down there relates to the roads down there, not the ice rink, to the best of my knowledge. I think that's all been fenced off well before our announcement.
Emma?
Thanks.
Yeah, there's been some really good discussion tonight. There's been some really good points that I've heard made about things like the fact that having an outdoor swimming pool allows competition swimmers to prep for outdoor competition, that, you know, that Manuka's not the right size for that kind of activity, you know, accessibility for people to get to, that you know, Stromlo isn't necessarily the right solution for accessibility reasons, and also some really interesting points made, what Darren was saying about the census data and you know, what drives the population projections. There's been, you know, some really long-standing known issues with those kind of things. One of the problems with that is that and this isn't just an ACT issue. This goes Australia-wide. Census do their population projections based on assumptions about how many people will live in property that's got a particular zoning, and those assumptions really probably need to be updated, because there are a lot more families living in apartments now than there were in decades past when those assumptions for doing that kind of modelling were made. So there's definitely some issues there, and Canberra's not immune to those, because we also use census data when we're looking at those kind of things. All of this, you know, is really important. But I think one of the really, really big things is that we're talking about a facility that was built decades ago in the current Phillips swimming pool. And the reason why I've found tonight's discussion so interesting is because there have been a number of people talking about what they're looking for in a facility now. And that's not necessarily the same as what the current facility was built for, decades ago. So I think that is a really interesting discussion that we should be having as a community. I'd really like to see a bit of a summary of what the community is actually looking for out of a swimming facility, these kind of criteria for these reasons. I think that would really help in making the case for what any future swimming facility should look like, rather than just saying, let's save the thing that's already there for an indefinite period of time. Let's actually have a conversation about, if we're going to have a public swimming pool in Woden, what criteria do we need for it now and moving forward into the future? Because it's not necessarily the same as what we used to have. And I think that's a really interesting conversation to have, and ties in really well with, bigger picture plans like the district plan that we were talking about earlier, and with things like, long-term facilities management plans for the whole of the ACT for sports and rec.
Yeah, I think that, it's a really good point. We need to have a conversation about the indoor-outdoor thing. Everybody is very passionate about the outdoor pool, but as well as being able to swim outdoors, to swim year round, people like an indoor, but in the winter. So is it possible to have both? I understand that in Junee, they have got a very good indoor-outdoor pool where you can close, you can be inside in winter, but you can open it right up in summer. Do people think that it is possible to have an indoor pool that opens up onto green space to give an outdoor sort of feeling in the warmer months? Is that a compromise that people can go for if there's a decent model? Like, should we check out the Junee one? That was actually from, I think it was Les Barclay from Tilapia Swimming that told me about the Junee one. So if there's models out there that work well, are people really adverse to having that sort of indoor-outdoor type model?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello. I think it's a good idea, Fiona, what you've just said. It's actually a good idea, but I don't know where you'd be putting it, because maybe that one there, that's the one in Phillip, maybe it could be converted.
We've got sites.
Once the ice rink's built in Tuggeranong, though, because I hear Tony, you can't destroy the sport of any ice sports by the pool.
No, we have to have both. Like they've both got to thrive. Yeah. Maybe they don't both thrive on that site, but they both need to thrive wherever they are. We just don't want to lose the ice sports because it is such a great thing.
I think we need both indoor and outdoor. We need potentially a diving facility because Civic Pool is going. We need at Tuggeranong, it's really nice to swim there because I work there, I swim there quite a lot. It opens up out to the north, and they've put in the summer, and they've put in outdoor water play areas, that kind of stuff. There's so many examples of pools around the country. There's one in the city, Sydney, that's got indoor and outdoor, isn't it? The what's his name after the swimmer? Thorpe's pool in the centre.
If you mean Ian Thorpe, it's got a big side, but it's actually an indoor pool.
It's an indoor pool, but there's outdoor pools in the same area. When my son used to do gymnastics, and that's another issue about Woden Valley Gymnastics in Holder, there's associated with one of the clubs in Rudy Hill, there's a big gymnastics hall, there's a bowling alley, and there's a swimming pool. And that's like international standard gymnastics, as well as a pool.
Thanks, Luke. Bob, I noticed you've got your hand up. Would you like to make a comment about that or whatever it is.
Yeah, Fiona, I think just one other option maybe to explore. I'm just not sure the viability of it, but and the costing. But Melbourne Vic Centre is a perfectly good example of an outdoor pool that's a competition pool has a huge amphitheatre over it, and it's actually quite open. So the roof, there's a cola over the top, which is quite high, and people swim in it all year round. It is, and it's used for competition as well. It may be an option to consider a model like that as well. And Junee is a really good example of what could be done as well, certainly.
Okay, so I mean, we can approach the swimming community and ask for ideas of, you know, models that we could look at. It's the same with the indoor sports facilities. You talk to the local clubs here, they go travelling around Australia. They know where there is great examples of indoor sports facilities that would be appropriate here. So, Preet, did you want to speak?
Yeah,
again?
Fiona, I guess I just get concerned. Like, if we let this pool shut, won't there just be an argument mounted that, oh well, everyone's just going to Western? Or I just worry that if we lose this battle, we don't regain the ground. But maybe I'm just being pessimistic. So maybe it's okay to shift the campaign to a new site and do that. Because I agree with Emma. I think, I mean, the pool it's great to have it, but it really needs some love. It's not it doesn't compare to any of the nearby pools. Like, it's not ideal. But I worry that if we lose this ground, then the battle lines get redrawn and we just don't have a pool.
Pre, we're not, the petition says to fix the pool and open it. So it would be the short-term solution and the long-term solution. So the short-term solution is to fix it and open it until a longer-term solution is found.
Okay.
So yeah, we don't want to lose the pool at all, because I agree. You know, what it seems to me is happening is it's death by 1,000 cuts. You privatise an asset, it gets run down. The community slowly accepts that it's not the greatest facility, and then it's closed, and there's an outcry, and then it all, you know, drags on and on for years later, and then when it actually happens, we've just defeated and we accept. I actually had dinner with a friend the other night who said to me, Fiona, we've accepted that the pool is going to close. And I was like, no, we have not accepted that. No, you can't just accept second-rate solutions or very poor solutions. You need to fight for good outcomes. And sadly, we're not getting good outcomes, and we really have to fight for them. And it's going to take all of us. It can't be just a few individuals, but we all need to stand up and say, no, we need, you're bringing whatever, 10, 20,000 people into Woden, you need to retain the facilities or make them better. Right? So anyway, that's my view, and I will continue to fight for it. So I thank everybody for coming along tonight to support the whole cause. Darren, over to you.
Couple of things is, you know, with the ice rink going, there's more room on that block to build a diving pool, probably build another outdoor pool while the other pool gets done. There's better public transport in Woden, especially with light rail coming, and the carport. All the best, Tony, in Tuggeranong, but parking is terrible, transport's terrible, and there's no land, but that's another thing. I don't think the school communities in Tuggeranong know about this, and I think you should reach out to the P&Cs in all the school areas to know about it, because I've got children who learn and they go to King's Swim School, right? But once they learn to swim, they're not going to go to King's for their recreational swimming. So I think you need to start targeting those P&Cs around the primary schools about the school that the pool's closing. And then you'll get a base of this younger generation to assist you with your fight.
Yep. And I think that's the plan in our, when we do the consultation for the district level plan, that's a good time to go and approach the P&Cs And there's also some land care sort of stuff in the parks that we can talk to them about too.
Fiona, do you think you should add on your petition to maybe convert it so that it can be in the summertime open, in the wintertime closed, that same pool then, Philip?
Well, that's a part of the long-term solution. So, you know, we're not trying to preempt anything. It basically, the petition is keep it open now in the short term, and then let's sort out the future. You know, I can't preempt, you know, what might happen, but something needs to happen. You know, like the community, as Emma's been saying, the community needs to talk about this. I personally, you know, I have my own views, but other people have other views, and they're all valid views. And we need to hear everybody's views and work out what the principles are that we want to, you know, like, for example, with the planning for the town centre, first principle is that it's people-based planning, that the people are considered in the whole thing. Where will be the streets, the active streets? Where are the community facilities? How does it all connect? And so, you know, there's principles that we can work through about what we want to see. And you know, at this stage, it's just everybody's having a view, and then we will come forward with some ideas and see what people would like. Mary.
Thanks, Fiona. We've touched on the state of the pool. I think in terms of the government's focus on this site, there hasn't been compliance with what the lease purpose actually requires of the site. And it's always struck me that the AC government seems to have fear of actually enforcing what our leases require of us. And that's something I'd encourage the government to look at. That if the advice that's been obtained thus far is that those conditions can't be upheld and enforced, perhaps more other external legal advice should be sought, because the terms are there for a reason. But as we've all acknowledged, if the current owners actually want to get out of the site for various reasons, and it sounds like ice skating is going to move. I mean, I'm with you, Fiona. I'm very sorry to see it go for so many reasons, but I've also heard what he's expressed today. But then we have to look at, well, what can happen with the site, with the pool, and some good ideas have been put on the side. But Emma raised whether, or it might have been Marisa, about other partners to government with the pool. And one thing I wondered about was whether the ice skating rink could be developed into a restaurant, cafe, or even a supermarket for all those people in the towers that could do with a convenience store. And a condition of that, though, is the running of the pool. Some sort of partnership with government where there will be a financial incentive on that site if it is a fait accompli that ice skating is going to go. And as I said, Fiona, I wish it wouldn't go either. I think there's so many reasons for it to be in the centre of Canberra. But
it is it brings people from interstate. They stay in hotels, they use the restaurants, the cafes, you know, they add to the activity. It's the same reason why Andrew Barr wants things in the city, to bring people in there for the social and economic development of the city. That's, you know, I want to keep it in Woden. It's such a good driver. I don't understand why you want to bring interstate people to the back of Tuggeranong down there. I love Tuggeranong. I go there all the time. It should thrive. But it's just a better site where it is anyway. So, yeah, Tony, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks again. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we as I said before, Fiona, we've never campaigned to put it in the Tuggeranong, as you said. We outlined principles to create a viable facility, and as I said, you know, this site was determined not by us. Now, we think it's workable. We think really good things are going to happen for ice sports as a result of getting a new facility. I genuinely feel like you're kind of missing that point, you know. This is a huge opportunity for the ice sports community to thrive. And the ice sports community, as I said, it's all of the ACT and Southern New South Wales. So, you know, I don't mind as I said, the Phillip rink right now, but I think your number one challenge remains financial viability of the pool. And the pool hasn't been financially viable for a very, very long time. And, you know, yes, they have said that the ice rink is currently subsidising the pool. That's a tax on ice sports, and it has a consequence for ice sports. There's been some really good ideas thrown into the mix here about alternatives to improve the viability. And in terms of the developers, we've talked to the developers, you know, and the current limitation for developers is the least restriction for acquiring a pool and an ice rink. If and when those restrictions are moved, that's when the financial viability and the value of that location goes up. So I think your campaign has to link the pool to future development and stop seeing the ice rink as the solution. It's not.
No, I'm not. I'm
ice
saying,
sports.
Tony, I think you've missed my point. I'm saying separate them. Separate the pool from the ice.
When it suits, because you keep saying about keeping the ice sports facility there, it's not viable there currently. You know,
if there was no pool there, if it had the whole site, the 1.3 hectares.
Pool or your ice rink? You're just saying that.
No, Tony, we've talked about different sites. The pool, we've talked about the Edison Park over north of the athletics track. We've talked about between Southlands and the Plaza High Marsh Drive, like moving the pool and leaving that site, the 1.3 hectares, to be all ice. You could put a hotel where the pool is to take the interstate people with the second ice sheet where the two little pools are.
Fiona, if you're telling me you're decoupling your campaign for a new pool from the arguments around keeping the ice rink in Phillip, then you have my full support.
Sorry, say that again.
if you're telling me that your argument for the new pool is decoupled from the arguments around the ice rink going to the new facility, then I wish you the best of luck. I genuinely do. I feel your pain. We've been there for 7 years ourselves, you know. But I think you've got to be really careful in terms of your public narrative around the arguments around the ice rink, because you know we've campaigned. We're at the finishing line, and the last thing we need right now is more hurdles thrown into the mix that stir up, you know, the discussions around where the ice rink should be. You know, from our perspective, it's unhelpful. But as I said, we wish you well. So I would really encourage you to reflect on that as part of your campaign, because, you know, conflicting messages can do damage. So,
but what is the long term? What's the best solution? I mean, if we're looking at the long game, what is the best solution for you?
For me?
For the ice sports and where it's located.
Well, it's seeing this through to
if it
fruition.
had the old site, if it had the whole site where it currently is, if the pool was decoupled from it and moved away.
But it's a how do I put it? It's a hypothetical, you know. Right now we've got a location, we've got investors, we've done the options paper, we've done the tender and all that kind of stuff. The location's announced. We're going ahead and we're on track to get a new facility built. You know, for us, that is the end game. You know, so to raise, as I said, we've never chosen a location. We've outlined principles that we think make the ice sports centre viable. And so far, we're meeting those principles and coming up with a viable facility. So I think, in a way, there's probably lessons there in terms of your campaign. You have to rethink the viability argument, not linking it to the ice rink, because that's a tax for us. It's linking it to other developments so you can have your cake and eat it too. I think that's the more clever play. You know, there are other options out there. You know, to campaign now around keeping the ice rink there, that horse is bolted. Yes, I know your point in saying you can get it back. You're risking killing. You'll lose your pool, and we're risking losing the rink as well. So I genuinely think
well,
there's a
it just takes, frankly,
it
takes the government to just, you know, come up with a. They're just letting the whole Phillip site fall apart, and everybody's fear is that it's going to, once the new ice rink is built, this site will be boarded up, and then we'll all go, derelict site. You got to do something. You can't just let it sit there for 8 years, and then it will be rezoned and it will become towers. So we're, you know, it's a lose-lose.
Can I just say again? I mean, as has been said, that site has been in private ownership for 40 years. There's been plenty of opportunities to reinvest and do that facility up. You know, as I said, I'm not going to criticise publicly the current rink. We have valued their support and engagement, and we will continue to value it. But I think, you know, I don't think it's the government's problem to solve. That's been in private hands for a very long time. And I think One of the other ladies, one of the members made comments earlier about the accountability around it. I think your opportunity is to find alternatives in terms of making that site viable with a pool. I think that's your opportunity. And I think that should be your focus, not linking it to the ice rink.
All right. I thank you, Tony. And I think it's time we probably moved on to our next agenda item because we've only got half an hour left. So Caroline has kindly said that she will hold off till the next meeting, which will be in a month in December. So thank you, Caroline. And so we'll have Alice. If Alice would share her screen. Alice is the founder and convener of the ACT Urban Woodlands Rescue Project and has done the fabulous work in the Fowl Street Park in Western.
So I'm just trying to share that now. Whoops, hang on. Hopefully you can see it. How's that looking?
You just need to make it full screen, I think.
It's full screen for me. Is it not full screen for you?
Yeah, it is now.
It is now. Okay, great. Just a little delay there. Okay, well, just before I start, I just play a tiny little sort of 40-second introductory video and then I'll go right ahead. Okay. Hi everyone, thanks so much for having me here. My name's Alice Haythorn and I'm part of a small land care group called ACT Urban Woodland Rescue, and we're restoring a small pocket park off Foal Street in the suburb of Western. It began as a barren, degraded understory of invasive weeds, including African lovegrass, and now it has transformed into an understory which more closely reflects the original ancient meadow and woodlands that once covered Canberra. So 2.5 years ago, just through a simple inquiry about this famous lovegrass, I came to understand that our city landscape was under threat from ecologically transforming weeds, but also that we had allowed the decline of the severe decline of mature and hollow-bearing trees, which are fundamental to the health of our local ecosystem. And all this...
Sorry, I'll try and work out who that is and mute them.
That's all right.
I will mute that person.
Thank you. So as part of the journey I took, which led me to understand and appreciate Canberra's local ecosystems, I found myself wanting to restore the original understory of the boxgum woodland to the Foal Street Park. And I read across several disciplines and consulted widely with specialists in ecological restoration. And this led to the development of the woodland and meadow restoration method, which seeks to apply the best available science to restoring the boxgum woodland plant community here in Canberra. So just on your screen, there's just a quick outline about what I'd like to share with you tonight. Just cover the issues we face with degraded landscapes and the impacts on the community, what we're doing to damage our landscapes, often without realising it, why biodiversity and ecological function matters. And then I'd just like to take you through the little project at Foal Street and some stories about the park, and then just a quick couple of slides summary about this method, its goals and its application. So the issues will be familiar to us all, I think, whether it's a park or school playground or Canberra's public spaces, other public spaces, they suffer from similar issues: loss of tree canopy coverage, including mature and hollow-bearing trees, which are the backbone of our local ecosystem, loss of middle story and understory vegetation, and then, unsurprisingly, a loss of small bird and animal habitat. And then finally, what we're seeing now, which is the move of ecologically transforming weeds across the landscape, an overall loss of native biodiversity, and a desertification of our landscapes, if you like, a drying out through the way we're managing them, through the constant mowing, which causes erosion and soil carbon loss. And of course, now we're facing climate change. And the impact on the community of these degraded landscapes is significant. Increased risks to health from increasing daytime and nighttime temperatures, particularly for children and the elderly, increased noise and light pollution, exposure to ultraviolet radiation, reduction in air quality, and importantly, and there's a lot of research on this, a reduction in the overall sense of well-being, but in mental health, which is a particularly poignant subject. So how did our urban landscapes become degraded? Well, often our local plants don't get a lot of attention. So we plant a lot of exotics, and many of them are beautiful too, but they don't provide the functions that our local plants evolved to provide. For example, exotic plants need higher nitrogen and phosphorus, where our local plants need lower nitrogen and phosphorus. And that excess nitrogen that we pump into the soils then damages our waterways. Over 90% of insects don't recognise exotic plants as food. And they are food, of course, for lots of animals. So without them, it becomes immediately evident that these species, other species, start to go into decline. So a little more on how this happened. Well, poor management is something we have to own, including the unforgivable removal of the mature trees in our landscape. Fragmentation of the landscape, which really speaks to some of our planning approaches, changes in soils and hydrological processes, which is really just about the way that water moves through the soil and recharges the natural water table, a loss of the original plant community that puts the trees under stress. And of course, if we have any fallen timber or mulch, then we take it away. So the carbon in the mulch and the fallen timber that would normally repair the carbon nitrogen cycle is damaged. And then of course, the less carbon we have in our soils, the less water they will hold. So we mow frequently, and that creates conditions that only weeds that tolerate extreme circumstances favour, like the African lovegrass that used to cover the Fall Street Park. So why does biodiversity matter? Well, incidentally, biodiversity more broadly, you can think of that as the variety of all living things, and it's really all about function. So the less biodiversity we have, that is to say the biodiversity that evolved where we are, then the less function we're going to get out of our environment. So I like to explain it as environments being made up of little jobs that are performed by a variety of different forms of life that depend on each other. They co-evolve together to perform these jobs, and together they work. And our local biodiversity is beautiful because it works. So it's obviously unsurprising then to realise that our survival depends on the functioning of this local environment, and that includes how we treat our landscapes. So this environment moved slowly over millions of years, and yet if you think about it, we can do so much damage in just a few hours with a residential lawnmower and a whippersnipper. So I'd like to take you through now just a quick tour of the project at the Fall Street Park. That's where it's located. You can see on the map there between Withers Place, Falls Street and Boolarlow in Western. It's half a hectare. And it's a really good little case study because it's representative of a lot of sites across the city. It was basically a passive understory of mown weeds. And in this case, and in many cases, those weeds include serious weeds like African lovegrass, declining bird and insect life, shrinking tree canopies, soil erosion and compaction, a lack of water retention during and after rain events, and of course in the summer, the hot and dry conditions and the loss of topsoil, so the dust that we face. So just a brief comment about the origins of this project. I, of course, responded at this was built as a result of an inquiry about the lovegrass, but in the end, I read widely across a number of disciplines and then sought advice from some of the experts who wrote some of the studies that I read, who came out to age the trees and discuss this pilot that I wanted to put together. And so I applied for a grant, and when the money came through, this is what we did. We developed strategies. So based on the available science, we developed strategies for removing the invasive weeds like African lovegrass. We have re-established begun re-establishing the original diverse native understory to protect the trees. So to give you an example, if we could go back 200 years and I drew a square metre on the ground in this area where we are now, we would have been able to count more than 40 different species of native plants. Such was the incredible biodiversity that evolved in this place, uniquely in this place. So we've been working to reverse soil loss, increase water retention by returning carbon to the soil. And this is all with low cost methods, incidentally, and slowing water movement across the landscape. We leave fallen timber under the trees to provide habitat for native animals and invertebrates and insects, but also to return carbon to the soil. And of course, we've been reaching out to the community around us so that people, to tell people that the parks won't survive without their gardens. And so it's really important that we think about how we can weave some of this original native plant diversity into our gardens. So just a quick word about these mature and hollow bearing trees that I'm mentioning. They take 180 to 220 years to form hollows, and our wildlife are disproportionately dependent on them. So the whole system functions as a result of the presence of old trees, and that's not just our ecosystem, incidentally, that's ecosystems across the planet. So they support many forms of life, and that's why they're referred to as keystone species. So you can see here on, not sure which side it is when you look at it, but the female gang doesn't have the bright red head, and she's perched on a forming hollow in the park, in the Fall Street Park, which unfortunately from those dimensions would not be big enough for her. But her mate is sitting on top of a limb that's a hollow that's now forming, which may very well be large enough to allow them to nest. But of course, because there's such a shortage of these hollows, then an intense competition follows for these different species, and many of them miss out. In case you're unfamiliar with it, this is African lovegrass. The birds can't eat the seeds or use it to build their nests, the grass to build their nests. It's also highly flammable. Unlike our native grasses, which burn at a much lower temperature and which also won't burn until they're over 70% cured. And this is just a little slide that I put in because obviously it's the next generation trees that are significant. And you can see here in this picture a little sapling that would have been mown over many times. And when we started the project, we obviously stopped that from happening. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a little baby magpie in the bottom corner there. And just as an illustration of the functions that these little saplings perform, frequently small magpies and so on in the spring will take shelter in these little spots, away from the eyes of predators, basically. And the reason why we're not getting natural regeneration of these saplings is not just the mowing, but the compaction that follows and the loss of native vegetation. So here you can see what the park looked like at the beginning. You're looking at, on the left, you're looking at a red gum. So the co-dominant species in our woodland were red gums and yellow box. That particular red gum is over 300 years old, and the red gums on the right are over 200 years old, and there's a little yellow box tucked down the back there, and that's also over 200 years old. And you can see the state of the park. It was during the drought, but still in quite a state. So there were numerous, obviously, different native species of plant in this original woodland, and these are just some of them that we've returned to the park. And these are some of the animals dependent on the park and the surrounding gardens. And you can see that there's a little native butterfly down there, the common blue. And I put that in because whether the presence of native butterflies is a good illustration of the health of a system. And so we're keeping track of that. And we've had over 9 native species return since we began this restoration. So you can see here, I'm just going to flick through now, sort of a whole lot of after shots. So you can, if you just compare what we started with, and now let's move on to 1 year of rain. So the project's 2 years old. We had 1 year of drought, and this is what 1 year of rain did, restoring the original, reconnecting the original plant community with these hollow bearing trees. And I'll just flick through those for you. And as I said, we've had over 9 species of native butterfly come back. Over 40 species of native bird have been recorded travelling through or spending time in the park. of particular interest to some of the small birds that perform really important functions for the native trees. You can certainly, the insect life is unmistakable now in the park, which is obviously really important because there's a little painted lady, native butterfly there. Now this is just the team. They're very enthusiastic. There's a core group of 8 of us that did this, with the broader community dropping in when they had time. So it doesn't require like a huge group of people. And since we started the project, we've scaled it. So partway through, while we did a lot of manual work, I experimented with a couple of methods, and an excavator came in so that we could manage weed seed load and also release compaction in the soils and so on. There we are again. Now, I'll just point out that our local ecosystems evolved over a wide climatic range. So you see that green belt all the way up there. That's how far the boxgum woodland and natural temperate grasslands stretched, all the way to the south of Queensland. So they are beautifully suited to adapting to our warming climate. However, the health of the soils and the hydrological processes, that is to say the way that water moves through the soils, which is what makes cooling possible, are bound with the composition, so the types of plants and the way they're arranged in our local plant communities, because they've evolved with these processes. And one of the interesting things about this project is that we can see that while we've modified and damaged our local ecosystems, they're not beyond repair. And to maximise the benefits of the ecosystem services in our urban landscape, we've restored basically habitat complexity to this understory and the middle story of the original ecosystem. And I'll just take you through a few little stories. You can see the plant that's come up at the base of the eucalypt there on the top left-hand side of this slide is a native saltbush, which came up by itself. The seeds were probably deposited in the last 10 years by the little silver eye that you can see in the middle right there of your screen. And that's because of the way we changed the soils to make it more hospitable for the natural regeneration of the original species. And the little saltbush butterfly you can see on the top right-hand side, this is its host plant. So without that plant, it wouldn't exist. And this was one of the most exciting stories that have come so far out of the project. Last summer, this little butterfly, native butterfly called the checkered copper, appeared, and it appeared along with this native oxalis, which is a small native clover, if you like. And the checkered copper butterfly completes its life cycle with that plant and with a particular species of ant. It lays its eggs under the leaves of that little plant, and then the caterpillars care for those caterpillars when they hatch, and ultimately, taking them out every day to feed off the leaves and the flowers of just that plant. And then the caterpillars ultimately form a chrysalis in the ant nest, and after 12 days, they re-emerge as adult butterflies. And here you can see on the left a picture of this specific type of Iridomex ant, which cares for the checkered copper caterpillars. And then on the right, the eggs that have been laid under the leaves. And I'd just like to show you some beautiful footage out of Butterfly Conservation South Australia, because they were able to capture this. So I'll just turn that on now, and you should be able to see a checkered copper butterfly caterpillar being attended to by these Iridomex ants. And what's believed to be happening there is that the little caterpillar releases a sweet exudate or a sweet substance, which allows for this beautiful little relationship to go on. So I'll just give just a quick summary on this method. They're low-cost, evidence-based revegetation techniques that we've used to engage in this restoration. They obviously drive habitat enhancement for local wildlife, but they improve ecological and hydrological function. So that means that as we slow water across the landscape and we improve the soils, then the original plant community can do things like cool the landscape in the summer and adapt to the warming temperatures. We also address the mitigation of fragmentation, so how we can do simple things in our garden to minimise the effects that we're having on the natural dispersal of seed and the natural movement of wildlife. And that's just about where we plant and what we plant things. And then there are all the benefits that flow from that. Cooling, mental health. I mean, I can tell you great stories about parents who've taken me aside and specifically wanted to tell me how well their children play in this park, how relaxed and well behaved they are, even though it's a small park, and their preference to come and spend time here as opposed to the industrial playgrounds. Of course, then there are these other benefits, including citizen science opportunities for children and so on, that you can imagine flow from this. And then, of course, largely, it's expected to be self-sustaining over time. So we've seen the weed population change significantly. The love grass is gone. The Chilean needlegrass is almost gone. And what we would expect is just episodic intervention. So the cost of managing a landscape that is restored in this way would be much lower. And that's largely because we're dispensing with the weeds, we're repairing the soils, but we're delegating all of those jobs back to all the little creatures that evolved to do them. And just to give you an idea of how we might apply this elsewhere, our approach is to survey sites, including the location of utilities, access requirements, assets, because we are in an urban space, to survey the existing vegetation. We have little strategies for dealing with different weed species. We obviously immediately gravitate towards, doing our restorations immediately under the canopy of the important trees first because of the role they play in the landscape. And then we look at the size and shape of the little revegetated area and provide a species list and the various approaches that we've basically used to deal with the little park at Fall Street. So just sort of as a little summary, I would say that we can work together and protect and enhance the health of our local environment. And the key ways that we would do this would be to protect the mature and hollow bearing trees, because of course there's insufficient time for young saplings to grow and replace those services now. We're already experiencing climate change. To restore our public spaces and gardens with more than just trees, but also the native understory plants as well, which are beautiful. And to think of our gardens and parks and schools as part of the wider landscape and plant and manage them to create and sustain biodiversity. That's it from me, Fiona. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. That's really great. Alice showed me around the Fowl Street Park, and it really makes you feel happy inside, seeing the red gums and the yellow boxes, like with all the understory and the biodiversity underneath them. And it's just cooler, and it's just a far nicer place to be. And it's just, just the goodness of restoring the land to what it was then, that dry, barren pitches that were there before. So, Andre.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Alice.
My pleasure.
Brilliant. Or something on your last point about schools, etc.
Yes.
I've had some experiences where about the education department needed or wanted or was persistent in spending money, and I put it into plastic turf.
Yes, well,
I was hoping you might have had some connections or talks with them, maybe. I've always been fighting for the remnants. Of course, all trees in the community have been maligned. The statistics don't bear out.
That's very true. That is all true.
They're so overrated and being dangerous. We accept so many other dangers, and definitely if we can bring schools back online into not going to the plastic, not going to the steel roofs, and not fencing off their playgrounds. I know people talk about vandalism, but if, as you said, people, when they have gardens that are natural and interesting, the people, the children, the community around acts differently.
It's
and
very
won't
true.
Won't have to go that way. Mental health, like you say.
Yeah,
Thank you for this presentation, but
thank you.
Keep that in mind, that if education department hasn't seen your kind of stuff
I actually
enough.
gave a presentation to there was some I gave a presentation early this afternoon, and there were people from the schools, the education directorate, who were present. So I think it's the first time they've really heard that science-based information, which is a shame, but they've heard it now. So you're quite right. When I began this project, it was really important to me. I mean, I think often it's just that it's a lack of information. So people just literally didn't know, and they'll hold on to information. None of us has time to track everything down. And I think that people will hold on to information they've come by. But in the end, it was just about sharing information with the community really about the nature of risk, and humans are terrible at assessing risk. So as you say, I mean, the risk of harm from accidental limb failure is something like 1 in 5 to 20 million. And there was some interesting research that came out of the Hunter Valley that found that it wouldn't matter what local governments did, the risk was so small that they couldn't mitigate that risk. But in spite of that, because we're poor at assessing risk, this project has come up with a model for actually creating a pedestrian barrier around the drip line of the older trees, because it normally takes over 200 years for a limb to fail on our local eucalypts. And that's because that's how long it takes for the fungus to eat its way through the branch. So,
yeah, and catastrophizing is in our brain, retelling the worst story. And
well, the media, I think, as well, the media is quite notorious for that.
And then not looking up after a storm and saying, oh, 760,000 trees are still standing up.
Yes,
no,
that's
we
right.
focus on that 1 or 2 trees in the area that had other factors that made it fail. Not just the wind, not just the wet ground. It's usually a multiple of things.
That's very true, and it's worldwide. Cities are losing their mature trees, and people are threatening their lives in doing it, and because they're partially because they have personal subjective senses of fear about. And I think that's driven by the media largely, and also just a lack of information. I mean, the risk of harm in your car driving to this park is 1 in 1,550. The risk of harm from accidental tree failure is 1 in 20 million. But not everyone thinks in those ways. So yes. So I think, but this model addresses that, because all we really need to do is create a pedestrian barrier around the drip line of these older trees, and stuff it full of the original biodiversity, which is what we've done, and then move on from there. And I can tell you that we have large numbers of families coming here to this tiny park, bringing their little kids, just prams rolling down the hill with little kids, and they love it. And I think that even if they don't know a lot about the local ecology, they feel it when they get there. They get it, which is really exciting.
Can I make a point? I'm glad that you raised exotic plants. I've got concerns, and this is in Western as well. The Featherstone, these planners, I think it's the Police Academy block there, they're talking about a forest and they want all deciduous trees planted there. And I said, they're not native. We need a forest of native trees for native wildlife. Yes. Is there anything that you can do to actually speak to these planning people and, just raise what you've raised here?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm happy to engage government on these matters. Once again, I think there are just there appears to be decision making going on that isn't evidence based. So, for example, there are some beautiful exotic trees. There's no doubt about it. But there's a view that somehow exotic trees are better at cooling this environment where than the local eucalypts. But of course, there are over 800 species of eucalypt, and there's only a handful that are local to Canberra. And eucalypts have evolved to block over 85% of the radiation, and they release all of the hot air at night, where the exotic trees, because they haven't evolved here, trap that heat under their canopy. But a lot of people just don't have that information. And I think there is definitely people proceeding without having consulted all that information. And perhaps the most worrying part of that is that some recent research came out of the University of Western Sydney, which actually looked at how our local eucalypts have evolved to withstand extreme temperatures. And it's in those heat waves where we're at the most risk. And they found that eucalypts are capable of ceasing the process of photosynthesis. And their root systems have developed so that they can draw on water in a number of ways from the landscape, so that they can continue cooling themselves, almost like sweating, if you like. And in doing so, they're able to preserve the integrity of their leaves, where of course the exotics, their leaves will just burn and that'll be that.
So I agree with you that's, I mean, I'm happy. I don't know if anyone has a contact, but I'm happy to go and share the information and provide alternatives. Half the time, I think, you know, various industries, you know, this is the paradigm, right? There is a strong paradigm for exotics. And so it's just a lack of information, really. So I agree that moves should be made to share that information with people. And I guess that's part of what we're doing here. We're trying to, you know, create an example for people to come and see it, really.
Who should I be muting?
If you can put your email there, Alice, and
I have a question.
In chat, and I'll screenshot it, do a screenshot of it so that I can send you that email and contact. Can you hear me through these other people? Probably not.
Sorry. So let's go again. Sorry, what was the question?
So can you actually put your contact, your email address maybe in chat, and I'll do a screenshot of it, and I'll send you their details. I think they're willing to talk. I'm also concerned about the forest of deciduous trees. You don't plant a forest of deciduous trees.
No. Well, one of the interesting things about that kind of behaviour is that I've just popped that in there now. Is that it shows a complete lack of understanding of the hydrological processes. So what I mean by that is that water moves through this landscape in very particular ways. The reason that we have open woodlands here, the reason that we evolved with open woodlands and natural temperate grassland is because we never got, and we have a number of, I should just qualify that, we have a number of ecological communities. So we've got dry sclerophyll and wet sclerophyll forest as part of the broader ACT. But where we've built our homes, it's open woodland and natural temperate grassland territory originally. And that tells us something about how much rain we got. And the thing is that we never got enough rain for dense forest. So then if we start to think about strategies where we're just popping in any kind of trees and lots of them, then it raises legitimate questions like, what's that going to do to the hydrological processes in the landscape? So will there be enough water for these trees? And the answer is no, there won't. And so then very few of them will do very well. And of course, and then when they start to hit hard times because of the nature of our cycles, our weather cycles, then you know, the exotic trees haven't evolved to be able to deal with that, where the local trees have. So yeah, they're legitimate questions for sure.
Did you put your email address in there? Because I couldn't find it. Did you put it in chat?
Oh yeah, I did. I just I think I just put it in chat
because I couldn't find it. I took a screenshot of
it's also on
no, it's not
Alice's there. It's on Alice's ACT Urban Rescue, Woodland Rescue.
Where's that?
Oh yes,
Facebook page.
Yeah, it is on the Facebook page. But do you want me to give it to you now? Do you want me to give it to you now?
If you type it in here, that would be great, and I'll do a screenshot of it.
And meanwhile, Kathy can ask her question.
Yes, sorry. Yes, go ahead. So I think I've just direct messaged somebody here. Annie, is that right?
Everyone. Yeah, send it to everyone.
Who have I got to mute? Kathy, are you ready?
Yeah, I'll just quickly talk. I just want to thank Alice for her presentation and all the work she's done, from all the other park carers that work in this district. I just like to correct something that Nora's raised. Featherston Gardens is a particular site. It has an arboretum, which is based around the old school of horticulture. It has a native garden, and it has a very dedicated band of volunteers. It's a public garden. It's maintained for a particular purpose. So, Nora, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, but that particular arboretum is protected for its historical values, and there is a range of other activities going on that site, and they're one of the most dedicated group of volunteers that you would come across. So I just wanted to correct any misinformation that was being spread about Featherston Gardens. It has a particular purpose and outcome and a really dedicated group of volunteers. So I wouldn't want to see people publicly criticising them without actually understanding the history and the work that goes on there.
Yeah, and I'd like to
this is with the police academy site. This is where I don't know where they're getting a forest of deciduous trees in the police academy
so
site.
we are
but they're
talking about the
people I
police
was
academy
talking
site,
to.
aren't we? Not the fair. I
Yeah,
thought we were talking about
that's
the police
right.
academy site.
No,
Is that-
that we are talking about that, but
We are?
they
Okay.
are actually working with the Featherstone Garden people, and I think
Oh,
they're
is that
doing
where
the
the
wrong
connection is?
thing.
Oh, I
They're
see.
doing the
Right.
wrong thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they brought it up at the Western Creek Community Council.
Yeah, you were
the
there,
other,
weren't you?
yeah, and Featherstone Gardens were there.
I was very
And
late. but
Well, I'm sure
I
everyone's
thought that
sharing,
much of
you know,
it,
in good
yeah.
faith. I mean, and I mean, I'm happy to contribute to that discussion if they're open to it, for sure.
Yeah, and the
I'll get their
CIT.
contact. Yeah, I'll get their contact and I'll send it through to you. Thanks a lot,
Okay.
Alice. I
Sure,
appreciate
absolutely. That's
it.
my pleasure.
Thanks, Fiona.
Yeah, to talk to the Featherstone Garden people. And anyway, the CIT was there, us all the gardens, and I studied horticulture and arboriculture at that CIT. And they are very dedicated, and it is a really great site. And they said that the CIT students had come back because the gardens aren't quite the same at the Belco CIT that they went to, and so they bring the students back to Western, to Featherstone Garden, to
I want my dog there
look at the
sometimes.
plants. Yeah,
It's lovely.
yeah, it's great. Nick, hand up there.
Hi there. Thank you, Alice. That was fantastic. I wrote in the, I got distracted actually with my cat, so I know you'll understand.
All right, my
But,
cat just screamed in the background. Sorry about that. There he goes again.
Sorry. What was the approximate cost of this in hours and dollars?
Yeah, right. So basically it was only a $12,500 grant, so a tiny grant. I've still got about $3,000 left. I'm a bit of a Nazi with budget. Now there was a lot of manual work at the beginning, but that was intentional because that was part of you know, the iterative process of working out how we could apply the science, what would work, what wasn't working, what we needed to refine, and then we scaled it. So I scaled it at a certain point, and that was roughly April last year when I brought an excavator in and did some experiments in managing weed seed bank and addressing soil compaction. And just recently now I've tapped into some literature in the discipline of hydrology to put a bit of meat on the bones for why it is that that's working so well.
Awesome. And I'm pretty sure you'll be aware of microforests.
Yes, I am aware of them, yes.
So microforests, just my very limited understanding, is that they have some exotic trees in them as well. All right, I'll just say it.
Yeah.
What's your view of microforests compared to what you've done?
Okay. So I mean, you
don't have to throw yourself on a bed of nails or anything.
Well, oh no, I mean, I just follow the evidence, and I'm completely I just follow the evidence. That's it for me. I was actually that was drawn to my attention, that particular method, a few months ago. So I put in a bit of time researching the background behind it. It's part of a sort of a global afforestation movement, being driven in large part by big capital, actually, like the World Economic Forum and the Bond Challenge. I think there's certainly no evidence behind it. And you could probably see, if you look at my presentation, you can see that dense forest has no relationship to our current landscape. And from the perspective of my understanding of the local ecosystems, when I see something like a dense planting like that, what I see is sort of a post-fire locked stand. So what will often happen is that when we damage landscapes, we clear them. We clear the mature trees. The mature trees are incredibly efficient at utilising water. And I think you might remember that I said during the talk that young saplings, most of them don't survive, right? What happens is that there might be a fire that comes through every 6 or 7 years. The local Ngunnawal people would patch burn as a way of maintaining the landscape. So it's an important form of disruption for these local ecosystems, and many across the world for that matter. And so basically those young saplings would perform functions but not turn into adult trees. The problem with lots of young saplings is that they use a vast amount of water. And so when you get a bunch of these young saplings and you stick them close together, then basically none of them is going to do very well. So even though there's really no research on this method, there's a lot of marketing, but no research, then what you find is there was a small study that was done in Europe
And what they found was that over 85% of the plants died. The origins of this thing, it's been popularized by an Indian software engineer who's set up a business internationally. He's made that sort of open source method available online. But originally, and often in the marketing, they refer to Miyawaki, a Japanese botanist who worked for a lot of, like for Mitsubishi, for a lot of big corporations. And at the time, Japan has always been a massive consumer of rainforest timber. So I think that method was really it's an urban forestry method, and it was put together to try and minimise the blowback about the wiping out of so many of those rainforests. And if you look at the marketing, it kind of makes sense. People saying things like, "Oh, we can regrow a forest in this tiny space of time," and I mean, just crazy things like that, I guess.
You're probably aware that there's some people building them in Canberra, and there's a local.
Yes, I believe. Yes, I understand that. Yeah, yeah.
I attended her talk.
Oh, okay.
On how to do it, and I thought it was really cool. But I was coming from a very low baseline of I have no idea what you're talking about. So I spent an hour.
Right.
And the thing I like about your system is that it's about a third of the cost. And
yes, it is a very expensive method, and I think it's roughly over $500 a square metre, and it's recognised as being very expensive and not really practical. But look, I mean, having said
but yours is heaps cheaper. The microforest was the one in Watson's like $55,000.
Right, yeah, that's a lot of money. But I mean, I just want to
say if someone wanted to do it, it's a lot of money you've got to raise.
Yes, that's true. But I should qualify that I don't question the good intentions of the people building the microforests. I totally can see that there are people in the community, many of them, that want to do really good things. I suppose what I'm doing here is I'm just, when I asked my community to come and volunteer with me, and it was, I mean, obviously, I was asking them to come and dig holes in the park with me on their weekends. When I asked them to do that, I wanted to make sure that I had, all the evidence in front of me, so that when they were putting their time in, they were doing it for, and we were going to get the results, if you see what I mean. And in the big picture, when it comes to maintenance, I suppose, when you restore ecological function, then that's what, nature does what it evolved to do, and it doesn't, it doesn't really need us. So it's not the same as planting a garden. It's really about repairing an ecosystem. But I know what you're saying, though. I think because a number of people have approached me who engaged with that particular method briefly, and I think they had a similar experience where perhaps they didn't have a lot of information going in, and I'm not really sure. I think that probably might be a bit of an issue, because certainly a lot of the claims around biodiversity and helping wildlife are completely unsubstantiated.
I did read that somewhere. Just to be clear, I'm not criticising anyone at all. It's just a question.
Yeah, no.
I think it would be really good to do this kind of thing in the area.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, no, I don't take these things personally at all. I'm entirely evidence-based, so I'm with you.
Oh, no, it definitely wasn't a criticism of you, and it also wasn't criticism of microforest, because I'm not qualified to criticise it. It's just a...
Sure. Well, I am, and I can tell you I'm qualified to criticise microforests, and I'll tell you that they won't work, right? And I mean, and that's regrettable for the people that are doing them. But yes, I mean, there's only so much we can all do. I mean, what I'm trying to do is just share this information with the community, come up with low-cost methods, and as you said, it's just about sharing the information so people can make an informed decision, really.
All right. Are you rentable? Are you rentable?
Am I rentable?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean to actually apply this method elsewhere?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that this was designed as a pilot. So what we want to do here is create a sort of a mentoring network. So for example, there is another group that's applying this method in Holder already in a small part of a park. And basically they started before I scaled it. So they're doing more manual work. But in future, when people apply it, it'll be done with an excavator. I mean, when I did those trials out here with the excavator, the areas that I've applied this method to, not only has the compaction been reversed to some extent, or to a significant extent, but also, that is to say, the water penetrates and it doesn't run off the top, but also it's minimum time in terms of weeds, you know, because of the method that we've applied to remove the weed seed bank without sort of removing all of the soil. So yeah, so definitely, I mean, I encourage anyone to get in touch with me that wants to do this in their local park, and they're throwing money this way. So, you know, in this direction. So, you know, I'm more than happy to help people with applying for the money. That's not a problem. I just provide them with the information. It's not, Transport and City Services knows this method, so they've seen it work here. They understand how it works. Yeah.
And Woden Valley Community Council is happy to support groups and work with Alice on it too.
Yeah, definitely. I think Western Creek Community Council said something to me about wanting to do something like that as well. I think it's great because, you know, it means everyone can learn along the way and support the local environment. And I don't know, most of the people I speak to, what really grabs them about living in Canberra is the connection to the wildlife and the natural environment. That's what they see as unique about living here. I know I do. So yeah.
And the wild flowers are full on Mount Taylor. And so maybe next month we can have some Friends of Mawson Ponds and some wildlife. Kathy, you still around? Some wildlife
She
from
said
Mount
goodbye,
Taylor.
I think.
Did she?
Yeah.
Oh, just missed me dobbing her in for next month. Anyway, thanks for that, Alice. Like, it's really inspiring. I really love it. And you'll have to go out there and have a look at it. It's really comforting to the soul.
See, it could go like all around the outside of a convertible indoor-outdoor swimming pool.
Well, look,
Yeah.
I didn't want to say anything, but yes, I mean, I totally agree.
Yeah. So thanks to everybody for the conversation on the pool too. I read through the comments, and the indoor-outdoor thing looks like people are accepting of, you know, going that way where you can have both to use the facility all year round. So anyway, watch this space and we'll keep advocating. Sign the petition.
You want to amend your petition, Fiona, to say with the possibility of converting it into a open and closed pool? Did you want to
I'm not amending the petition. It says about looking at a long-term solution and that we have to do that.
Well, that's a possibility, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a part of what a long-term solution looks at, a number of different things.
Yeah, it just might help your petition if you do put that in there. Anyway, it's your petition, but it might help if you do put that in there, because that'll give them a site to look at. It, you know, it gives them a view. Anyway, it's up to you.
Anyway, you know what? You have to start again if you amend the petition. And if we're going to put the petition in for this summer, like, we need to get it in the November sittings or the early December, the last sittings at least of this year. Otherwise, we wait till next year. We put a petition in that says, could you open the pool this summer, and summer will be over. So, you know, like with the sports petition, we've run it for nearly 6 months to get as many signatures as possible. But the pool, I think it's going to have to be a short and sharp one. So we've got about a month, I think, to get the signatures. So the QR code on the phone, I think that's an easy way. You can just say to everybody you know, here, swipe that, and it will take them straight to the site to sign the petition. All right.
Except it didn't work with the federal golf club development, the QR code. But anyway, I'll leave
Didn't
that.
it? Well, it doesn't work if you try to do it yourself on your phone, but if
it didn't link. Yeah, it didn't.
Didn't it?
No.
Oh, well, hopefully this one will.
Manually, yeah.
All right. Well, if
Bye,
that's about the size of it, thanks, Emma. Thanks, Caroline. Thank you, Peter Kane. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. Good conversation, and we'll do it all again next month. Oh, just one thing before you go. We've booked the town square for carols on the square, same as last year. And I've got a couple of choirs, the Australian Rugby Choir, the Woden Valley Youth Choir, maybe some people from the Brindabella Chorus. So we'll have, you know, last year was our first time. It was great. This year we'll be better at it.
Sorry, on what date?
8th of December, Wednesday, 8th of December.
Do you have a plan B in case there's a storm?
Cancel. Plan B is cancel.
Oh, you don't. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
No indoor areas to go to unless we go to a club or unless the library's open. But it's closed at the moment. It's not the same to have your choirs in the library. Someone might complain. Anyway. All right. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Fiona,
Yeah.
you have Alice's first slide there on your screen. The opening one, you know, the cover sheet, the cover slide, the very first one.
No, I don't think, because she didn't send it to me. She just shared it. But if you tell me what you're after, I might be able to get it for you.
It's just the first one with the name of everything on it. I wasn't quick enough to get a picture.
When you say the name of everything, what names were you after?
Oh, just her opening slide.
I don't know what she had on it, but I know where you can find information about it all, if that's what you're after. Well, she's got a Facebook and she's got an email that you can, you know, maybe you could just email her and ask her for the slides. No. For the first page. Because I don't think I sort of said, no, I don't have an email from her.
No, don't worry. I'll sort it.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
can contact her for you if you want. Thanks for coming, Val.
Well, thanks, Fiona. That was good.
Oh, it's feisty.
Well, good luck with the pool. But what are they going to do with that big block, the old CIT one?
The old Woden Valley High School.
Yes.
That's a car park at the moment. They say it's temporary, but this is what I mean. You know, we have got so many opportunities. We've got 10 hectares opposite the hospital. We've got, including that car park. That's 5 hectares, that site. We've got 3 hectares north of the swimming pool. North of the athletics track. You know, on the southern side of the road that you access the cemetery into, so you're not impinging on Edison Park. We've got that whole corridor. You know, like I know that it's owned mostly for high density housing, but there's got to be some give and take here where we have high density housing. That's all fine, but just provide some, like have a plan for your public spaces and your community facilities centrally located. So you never know when there could be a shift. And I know that a lot of people there were pretty happy to have the existing site for the pool. It's going to be surrounded by towers. Like there's better sites.
Yeah.
Like, really? I know maybe it's cheaper to keep it where it is, but I don't know, in the long game, I think to have a good plan.
But you need to look in the future, not just 3 years or 4 years. You need to look 20, 30. As Tony said, make it world class.
And it's going to be sort of just surrounded by towers and isolated from other community stuff. Like, okay, Phillip Oval will be there, but you can't get in there.
They must.
Anyway, I don't know.
The old Woden High School where the COT was, you said that was temporary. They must have something in mind.
Yeah, well, I hate to think. I bet you it's community facility land, and I reckon they'll sell it for.
Don't let them. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I know. Well, see, that's what's happening at Coolo Park. That was zoned community facility land, and it's on the land release program now. And this is what came up at Western Creek. You were there, Val, at Western Creek Community Council meeting, and Marissa was there, and it was about, so it's on the land release program to be community facility. But once you privatise it, what is it going to be? A childcare or aged care or something like that? Those facilities, you might call them community facilities. They provide services for young people and old people. They're not a community get together sort of. They're not a place where the community gets together. They provide a service to families. Like, I don't know. Lots of things provide services for family. They're private and they provide services. Everything does.
Well, there's not much
goods or services, one or the other.
Once the book place went in Coolman Court or Coolman at the shopping centre there, there's no big place for big groups to meet. Sakina's the biggest.
At least you've still got your community centre there, which is old and run down too. And I don't even think the government really supports that. I don't know how that one survives actually.
They have a lot of activities there.
Yeah, well, maybe that must be what's, it's the charges.
Yeah.
I mean, if they needed major maintenance, I don't know what would happen.
Well,
but
costs.
Somebody told me that they wanted to sell that off, and the old community centre in Western Creek. Is that right, Caroline?
You're muted, Carolyn. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I know I was muted. Sometimes I have two screens and it's difficult getting my cursor from one to another. So, certainly that's my memory of when we did the Coolman Court charity plan variation. They wanted to move the community. The idea then, I think, was to move the community hub to the site, which is currently on the land release that was the possible car park, so that there would be more sort of shopping stuff centrally with the shopping bit and have the community facilities over the other side, which didn't seem a particularly brilliant plan, but it didn't.
Yeah, because it's like what's happening in Molonglo, privatising the community facilities, that horrid bit on the south side of that building where they charge a lot of money to try and just sort of use the facility. It's just like, I don't understand, why does all the community facilities whereby people actually get together, like pools and basketball stadiums and art centres, like why do they have to be privatised? I don't understand it. And they're not privatised on the north side, privatised in the inner north, Caroline. Got plenty of facilities there that are funded by the government.
Oh yes, true, but there is actually a shortage of that sort of facilities everywhere. But yes,
they've got anyway. So I know we're not supposed to compare, but you sort of can't help it. And then the other thing that's upsetting me at the moment is the W2 and the ground level. Like Caroline, we went to the Verity Lane thing.
Yep.
And the whole ground, right? It's fantastic. And you can go up and music and whatever. If they were to do that sort of thing at the bottom of the new W2, if we have to have W2, they could open it up and have some food stalls and bars and stuff inside on the ground floor. But the commercial area is so small. The bulk of the ground floor is going to be residents' car parking and garbage, utility sort of stuff and electric substations. And it's like, what? It could be so fantastic. Aside from the overshadowing and the wind and all that sort of stuff, but like, Anyway, so I emailed the W2 people and they said that the government has put a limit of 600 square metres on the commercial. So you've got these, on the south side, these two tiny little commercial things that look like they're about, I don't know, less than 50 square metres each. And then you've got this veneer of commercial running along the town square, which is as deep as about a car park is deep. And it's like, God, has nobody got any idea how to make things half decent around here? And why would the government do that? Like, why would they put, and I'll bet you, is it Westfield? Have Westfield said, oh, we don't want, the ground floor of that new building to be any good, we don't want people attracted to it. We want people in the plaza. I don't know, I can't help it. I wonder, I might have to do an FOI on correspondence between Westfield